Listen, I did film and television studies at university for 3 years. I spent hours reading countless books and articles on subjects spanning from film all the way to television. Not a single one mentioned Hugh Grant once.
I achieved the hardest qualification across any university or college ever, a 2-1 in history. Let me tell you, the only thing that I learned was that we, as a society, have a history of denying and neglecting Hugh Grant's artistic and cultural relevance, not just in this country, but in the entire world.
I met Oscar at a Hugh Grant-themed event I put on at the Students' Union.
It felt as though Diggory and I were the only ones there, and we agreed that there was a Hugh Grant-shaped hole in academia.
We decided to put it right ourselves. We want to show people that he's an icon in acting.
We want to show people he's more than just a bumbling posh guy.
I'm Diggory Waite.
And I'm Oscar Beardmore Gray. And this is...
Taking Hugh for Granted.
Hello and welcome to Taking Hugh for Granted, the podcast in which two scholars watch every single film starring Hugh Grant in the attempt to answer the simple question: is this film taking Hugh for granted? Is this film good on its own, or does it rely on the bumbling Brit for its acclaim? I'm Diggory Waite, and I'm joined, as always, by my colleague and fellow Hugh Grant academic, Oscar Beardmore Gray. But today is slightly different because we're actually together in the same room. Oscar, how are you doing today, mate?
Mate, I am doing absolutely brilliantly. Because this is the first time, we saw each other about a month ago probably, but this is the first time we've actually been in situ together, actually spending any decent period of time for going on 9 months.
Wow.
Which is crazy considering we do talk to each other every single day.
Yeah, exactly. and in that 9 months, our baby, aka Taking Hugh for Granted, has grown and is now a fully fledged human being in itself.
Yeah.
It's great to be in the same room again and to do a podcast together.
Indeed. So the idea today is that we are going to watch the film together as well, which is very exciting. It is The Lady and the Highwayman, I believe, 1989. What do you think we're expecting today, Diggs?
I think we're expecting more knights and King Charles II and lots of, it's another period piece. It feels too long ago to call it period. Period I always feel like it's Victorian, but I guess it's period even if it's the Dark Ages, even if it's Neanderthals. I guess it's all period. But I think we're expecting more stiff upper lips, more upper classes, more swords.
More bonking from Hugh.
I certainly hope so. It was a TV movie, so technically we don't need to do it, but we thought we would because it looked funny. I expect it's going to be bloody crap. What do you think?
It may well be crap, but if it is, it doesn't matter because I'm with you recording and we're in person together, so that makes it worth it.
Exactly. I can't wait. Shall we have a synopsis?
Let's have it.
The Lady and the Highwayman, directed by John Huff and released in 1988. The young lady Panthea Vyne, played by Lysette Anthony, falls in love with the handsome highwayman, played by Hugh Grant, who saves her from her brutal husband. Later, when Charles II, played by Michael York, is reinstated as King of England, Lady Panthea learns of a plot to root out and kill the masked vigilante highwayman, known as the Silver Blade.
Right, Diggs. So, Lady and the Highwayman, let's get straight into it. We're going to do things slightly different today, which could be quite fun. We're going to watch some of the film, and then when we think we want to talk about it, basically have a quick break, have a chat, and so we don't actually know what's going to happen next. And we've just come away from watching the first sort of epic scene of this film, and it is something else. We were just both in absolute splits.
Yeah, we're 15 minutes in, and just to be slightly technical, just for a minute, the film has done a fantastic job of, yes, it's crap and it's low budget, but already I think we're quite invested. I'm really surprised by what it's done so far to establish who the characters are, what the stakes are, and speaking of the characters, Hugh Grant is fucking badass. He's so cool.
He is literally dressed as a 1700s Batman.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, he's got the classic mask on. He's got a sort of feathered hat, and he's meant to be a highwayman. And his hairstyle is great as well.
He has an amazing hairstyle. We'll probably make a lot of references to restoration because the films are set in the similar sort of time. So Hugh Grant there's similar hairstyles, etc., etc. Hugh Grant's hair in this is way better. It's actually quite sexy, whereas in Restoration, it was crap. But yeah, and he looks like Zorro basically, and that's the kind of character he is. And he's just basically saved the love interest in this.
And he hasn't just saved her.
Yeah.
He's more than saved her. He's come down from heaven and swept her off her feet, basically.
That's exactly it.
The scene is, this poor lady is married off to this ancient weirdo. And just as they get in the carriage after their wedding, he kind of starts trying to grope her, kills the dog. And then suddenly Hugh, out of nowhere, shoots a bullet through the back of the carriage.
Keep very still. Silverblade, you again.
I'm afraid so. I've heard you carry most of your disgusting fortune around with you. I evidently missed that last time. Out of the coach.
I'll be damned.
Out!
Instead of starting a fist fight like most of us, he gets his sword out and they actually have a proper duel.
Yeah, there's fire, there are logs involved. As I say, we're 15 minutes into this film. Hugh Grant has been chased by a load of soldiers, like a car chase, but with horses. And he's escaped about 9 or 10...
Cavalry, yeah.
Cavalry. Now he's faced off with the taxman, the richest man in this part of England, and also apparently one of the best swordsmen. He just fought him off. He's just stabbed and killed him.
And now he's been the good guy like Robin Hood and given the money that this taxman had back to the poor. So
yeah.
What is not to love about Hugh's character thus far?
Exactly. He's sexy, he's honourable, and well, that's all I care about. and he's good with his sword, if you know what I mean. So you can't really beat it. Right now, we're loving it. There's lots of intrigue. There's lots of things going on.
There's a love interest, which is always, the plot has been set very well, and I'm very much looking forward to dipping straight back into this.
Well, let's do exactly that.
Well, you're listening to Hugh Grant, Taking Hugh for Granted on the radio. Hugh Grant, Taking Hugh for Granted, oh, the podcast show.
All right, so we're probably about 2/3 through the film now, Diggory?
Really? I think we're about maybe halfway.
Maybe halfway.
Yeah.
We just had a power cut at my house, or a power outage, as they would say in stateside. The panting you might hear in the background is
isn't me.
It isn't Diggory. It's actually my dog, who really hates it when there's a power cut, because the smoke alarm gets reset and she just hates the smoke alarm. So she's panting and she's just around. So if that's if you hear that, it isn't Diggory.
Yeah, Bonnie just needs some friendly faces around.
She does.
So what did you think about after our initial thoughts, how they developed since?
I'm really, really enjoying this film.
If you're wearing headphones, you're like, what is going on in my ears?
It's really developed quite nicely. Hugh Grant is a vigilante, basically.
Yeah.
He is a solo man who's just going around beating people up for the hell of it.
Yeah.
And acting on behalf of the king, but the king doesn't really know
he's doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's clearly got the attention of the lady who has now come into his house after like a 2-year absence. They hadn't seen each other for 2 years, and suddenly, obviously, they're just in love with each other.
Yeah. So what we saw in after our first little chat, after like first 15 minutes, was all 2 years previous. So King Charles II, Hugh Grant's mate, has now assumed the throne. But Hugh Grant is owed some land and a house, and yet he's not taken it up because he's too bloody principled. And instead, he continues his life as a highwayman, acting on behalf of the king, but like you say, without the king's know-how. There he's attacking people who might be double-crossing the king, stealing their money, and giving it back to the poor. He's Robin Hood. He's Batman.
Cross between the two.
Yeah, exactly. He's Zorro, and he's an action hero. He just jumped off the roof and landed on his horse, landed on his saddle, and rode off into the sunset.
He also, he does kill a lot of people who have guns, but then don't use them.
They constantly Hugh Grant and his accomplice jumped out at these, like a group of 6 henchmen, all with muskets, and they just dropped their muskets as if they were like, oh no, there's no way we can take on 2 guys. And then everyone threw their guns away and they start having a sword fight instead. Everyone seems to think about shooting a shot and then going, you know what, let's get the swords out, do this old style. And unfortunately, Hugh Grant's going to win out every time.
Stand where you are. I carry the King's seal.
You are a leech. You may have the King's seal, but you have Cromwell's heart. Out.
I think this might be the coolest character Hugh Grant's ever played. He's doing some James Bond moments where there'll be a fight scene and he'll be the man with the cool thing that he says at the end after he's just dispatched another henchman.
Exactly. He's the one who's like laying out the classic line. Apart from obviously they haven't exactly become classic lines, but
no, not quite yet.
But yeah, no. What do you reckon? Where do you think this film's going?
Well, it's just got exciting because someone else who wants the land that Hugh Grant is owed. The land that Hugh Grant is owed is currently vacant, but that's where Hugh Grant is hiding out. But this guy Gage, he's the scourge of highwaymen everywhere, and he's sort of been hired to find where Hugh Grant is hiding, or the Silver Blade, as they call it.
We haven't mentioned that. His nickname is the Silver Blade, which is badass.
It's badass, and everyone's like, oh, his name, the Silver Blade, and everyone loves it. All the locals love him, all the poor plebs, because he gives them cash. Because he is Robin Hood, but yeah. So this man Gage has been sent to hunt down Hugh Grant, aka the Silver Blade, and so that's going to kick off soon. That's going to be very exciting. I think probably that's how this is all going to culminate. The more that the leading lady finds out about Hugh Grant, they've just met up again. She now knows who he is, and they love each other. Although there is one awkward aspect about it.
Well, they're cousins.
They're cousins.
I feel like this is something in 1700s is more acceptable than now, because all the sort of king's court are inbred and got 15 fingers and
exactly, yeah, and only 5 toes.
Exactly. It's hard to ignore that, but we'll maybe let it slide for now.
Exactly.
I'm thinking that this might end in misery for the lady.
Oh, that would be really cool if it did. If Hugh Grant dies at the end of the film, that'd be sick. But I think what will happen is some turn of events will happen. Hugh Grant his mask will be removed. He'll kill everyone, all the bad people. The king will be like, "You're brilliant." All the public and the plebs love him. And then he will live happily ever after with his bloody cousin in his house.
19-year-old cousin.
His 19-year-old cousin in the house.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
That's so very exciting.
Very, very exciting.
Are you a business owner? Are you running a political campaign? Are you a furniture outlet having yet another sale? If the answer to any of those questions isn't no, then you can have your advertisement right here. The Taking Hugh for Granted podcast gets over 100 listeners every single episode. For prices starting as low as 6 figures, you can have your advertisement right here. So what are you waiting for? Email takinghughforgranted@gmail.com today for a full price list, and you can have your advertisement right here.
So, we've just finished the film. What an absolute roller coaster! How compared to what you were thinking before the film started and after the film was finished, how different are those two things?
I went in with incredibly low expectations, to be honest, and I've come out of it absolutely. I'm gassed about it. It was such a good film.
It was so good. I was watching a bit of it yesterday when we were looking for a link for it, although it was on YouTube. I don't know why I'm saying link in that way, but I was a bit worried. I watched I was watching just a few minutes, and I was like, oh dear, this could be actually really boring and not even funny. In fact, it was kind of funny, but it was just really good.
No, this is a solid film, and Hugh is really good in it.
Yeah, he's so cool, and it's definitely the coolest character he's ever played.
He's a cool character because he's very mysterious. You don't get many lines from him.
Yeah.
Like you said before, he's kind of just like, he leaves sort of James Bond one-liners, and he's like the mystery man. He's like Batman. You don't see him very often. He just comes in, does his deed, and then he's out of there. Yeah,
you just hear about him. It's in the same way that henchmen would be like, oh, and then I heard Batman was there, and people were like, is he even real? People with the Silver Blade are the same. They're like, oh, apparently the Silver Blade was there, and he cut up these people and took their money and gave it to the poor. He's so cool, and his look and everything goes along with that as well. But I suppose from where we last saw everyone, basically, the leading lady is framed and with the death of her husband, who actually was killed by Hugh Grant.
At the very beginning of the film, that badass scene we talked at the beginning.
Yeah, with the duel. And she ends up in court.
Lady Panthea Vyne, the sentence of this court is that you be taken from hence to the Tower of London, where your head shall be severed from your body. May God have mercy on your soul.
But just at that moment, the doors are kicked down, and our masked man arrives.
Excuse me for interrupting. If I might ask you all to keep very still. That includes you, my lord. My Lady Vyne. Come quickly.
He arrives, but it's all a bit anticlimactic because he's basically just sort of arrested on the spot.
Yeah. Understandably,
exactly.
Yeah.
The musket men finally actually put their guns to good use.
Although they yet still don't fire their weapons. They just point. He's just outnumbered. There's 30 gunmen there?
Yeah, and that is the moment where his mask is taken off his face, and it's like, Lucius Malfoy. No, sorry, not Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah.
His name is
Lucius?
Lucius
Grant.
Cousin Lucius. Take them away.
Obviously, at this point, then it's clear that they're in trouble, and they're both sentenced to death at the Tower of London. Hugh and Lucius is condemned to death by hanging. The leading Lady Panthea is sentenced, as you said, to beheading in the Tower. Yeah.
And at one point, one of the guards goes, and rather poetically, we're going to kill you at the same time. So no one she can't save you now.
Yeah, exactly. And it really is a grandstand finish. It's about as grandstand a finish as you get.
Well, it's genius. So Hugh Grant has a couple of visitors to his cell, one of which is obviously that guy who's like, rather poetically, we're going to kill you at the same time. He's really annoying and comes in and goes, oh, it's the finest venison for dinner. And then Hugh Grant's like, fuck off, you wanker. But he also has another guest who is a lady who, look, we haven't mentioned her too much because we didn't probably realise how big to the story she's going to be. But basically, she's the one that framed Hugh and our leading lady Panthea. And she comes in and she can't help herself with Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant is so dashing in this film. She's basically like, look, I can save you if you marry me. And Hugh Grant's like, oh, what a price. And she's like, price? For many men, that'd be a prize. And he's like, I wouldn't love you. And even if I didn't love Panthea, you're a bitch. So she,
something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So then she scarpers. But the next visitor that comes in, the guard again, finds Hugh hanging, swinging, but too early. Hugh's killed himself. But obviously he hasn't. The man rushes to his hanging body, realises it's just his coat, and Hugh gives him a karate chop on the back, and then rushes to our leading lady's aid, her head is just about to be cut off.
It is kind of like a finger over hands moment, Oscar in front of a horror movie moment.
Yeah, you had your hands in front of your face.
Yeah, exactly.
It was horrible, though.
It was horrible.
It's a massive act.
Look, just on a side note, beheading is just a brutal thing. You talk like, imagine going to go and see one of your friends getting beheaded.
All of them were there. Everyone was there to go and see it.
Anyways, the guy is literally about to bring down the axe, and Hugh gives a right old cod.
yeah, throwing knife.
A throwing knife kill through the back.
So the axe comes down, but it narrowly misses her head, and then so does the executioner. He hits the deck as well, and we see a knife in his back. And the hero is here to save the day. The master man, Zorro, although at this point, obviously not wearing his mask, stands atop one of the towers, and he's just pinpoint throwing this knife in the back of this guy's head. And then he jumps down into a hay bale.
Exactly.
And a fight ensues.
Until King Charles II pitches up and everyone's,
It's like when the teacher comes in after she's just left the classroom and everyone's like, fuck, stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shh.
Yeah.
Exactly. And King Charles comes, sees Hugh, and realises that's his buddy from the beginning of the film because they got the same ring.
Yeah.
And then what is the final line? The final
line is so good, and you guys won't get this. So at the beginning, this is how the setup is like King Charles II gives Hugh Grant his hat so that these people who are chasing King Charles II will think that Hugh Grant is him. Because obviously these guys see the hat and think Hugh Grant's the hat. So then Hugh Grant obviously does some amazing skills, like riding his horse, and gets away from them. So then when King Charles II sees him now, about to hang, dispatching these henchmen and stuff, and then stops the fight, goes up to Hugh and goes,
Now, where's my hat?
and then they both laugh. Hugh has this wonderful smile.
He
on his
does
face.
have a wonderful smile,
Yeah.
and he's got a very like long face in this film.
Yeah,
it might be just because like the costume
aspect ratio, perhaps.
might be aspect ratio. It probably is aspect ratio.
Yeah, this awful 4x3 that we've got going on.
But he's got a very kind of
Vulpine face, you might say, much like a
Exactly.
wolf.
that is exactly what it is,
Mm.
and he's got a sort of bit of a monobrow as well, but actually adds to the look in this case.
Definitely,
But he looks
definitely.
very dashing.
He
and
looks
he's-
amazing.
The king and him just kind of look at each other and then give each other a right old embrace. It's
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
sick.
They love it. And what we were saying about this film is so good is, so they give each other the embrace, quick crossfade, which isn't...
You love the 80s film crossfade.
Yeah, exactly. Crossfade to the next scene. It's now Lady Panthea and Hugh Grant, and they're embracing, and they both look great, dressed up to the nines, ready for a night out in the town. And they're embracing, and he goes, "I love you, my wife," and she's like, "I love you too, Hugh." And the film ends, literally.
And they get off.
And they get, oh yeah, they kiss, and the film's over. Brilliant. We know what's going to happen, so there's no point stringing it out. He goes, "Where's my hat?" Within 30 seconds, the film's over, and it says the end all in the swirly writing.
It was a perfect end to the film. We were both thinking it would be quite cool if Hugh died.
That's true.
But
they couldn't add that.
In hindsight,
yeah,
I loved the ending. It was
Definitely.
you know, it was simple, but it was effective.
Yeah, exactly. It was bloody brilliant.
Taking Hugh for granted. Taking Hugh for granted. Taking Hugh for granted. What did you think, lads? Were they taking Hugh for granted?
Oscar, The Lady and the Highwayman. Are we taking Hugh for granted?
Diggs. We are definitely not taking Hugh for granted. There's another one in the book.
Yes.
It was, you know, we were just saying, it's always so great. Whatever film you're watching, whoever the actor that you like is, to find a gem from back in the day. And we have uncovered yet another gem. Pre-Four Weddings and a Funeral. It's a gold mine. It's an absolute gold mine.
Yeah. I think in some ways I'm having the most fun with his post-Morris, pre-Four Weddings and a Funeral era. It's the best.
Like kind of 1989 to 1994. It's like, guys, it's an absolute gold mine. You've got to go check it out.
Exactly. We're having so much fun. But yeah, why aren't we taking Hugh? What do you think of Hugh? What do you think of the film?
I really actually enjoy Hugh's acting in this. It was quite sort of, again, quite a simplistic act. But he played it with real pomp and show.
A poncho.
We now know where he got his fighting skills, his sword skills in Paddington 2, his stage combat level 4. Because here we are in 1989, him dueling. And he does a great job. And his look is more towards a Four Weddings and a Funeral rather than a Clive Durham in The Lair of the White Worm.
That is a great point. Yes.
I think he's actually looking pretty good here.
Yeah.
And he's looking pretty sexy.
Yes. That is the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sexy. Rugged.
How about you, Diggs? Are we taking Hugh for granted?
Oh, are we taking Hugh for granted? Are we fuck? This is just an absolute romp. I was worried. I was scared. I was cold, I was naked, I was scared. Were you there? Yes, you were there. Because
that's a great reference.
Yeah, those who used to sing hymns at school will know what's going on there. No, this film is great. We've said that. We've gone over that. It's brilliant. There's twists, there's turns. It's great fun. But what also is good, and another aspect to Are We Taking Hugh for Granted, is he's not being taken for granted. This is the coolest character he's played yet. He plays a vigilante, a Batman, a Zorro, you know, that kind of character. He's the cool guy in the film. He's basically like James Bond. It's wicked. He is not being taken for granted. And all the ladies fall over themselves for him. I fell over myself for him. He's not in the film a massive amount. Like you said, doesn't say too much, but that all goes with the vibe. It goes with the mysterious vibe. He's so cool. Guys want to be him. Girls want to be with him.
We want to be with him.
So are we taking Hugh for granted? Absolutely not. This was such a delight. And all the better for watching it with you in the flesh.
I know, it's fantastic. And we were watching it on my parents'... They have the smallest TV in the entire world. It's like, it's incredible. Yeah. But... it's just great.
All adds to the atmosphere.
It all adds to the atmosphere. The dog having a hissy fit halfway through.
Yeah, and also the what do you call it? The power cut. That just it all adds to it. I've had about 1,000 cups of tea, and thus I've been peeing every 5 minutes throughout the film.
But yeah, no, it might be a while till we watch another film together again with all this COVID stuff.
Yeah, bloody hell! Find a vaccine.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I mean, once again, it's another one. It's another one in the can. It's another gem, and we knew we were going to find them. We have.
Yeah. This is what it's all about: unearthing these bad boys. I'm so glad that this wasn't a dud. This was so good.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Taking Hugh for Granted is produced, edited and presented by Diggory Waite and Oscar Beardmore Gray. The producers of Taking Hugh for Granted would like to state that this podcast is in no way associated with the actor Hugh John Mungo Grant, nor does it endorse his views or represent him in any way. Instead, by creating this podcast, Oscar and Diggory hope to celebrate Hugh's illustrious career, reliving his old classics and shedding light on some of his hidden gems. Hugh, if you're listening, we hope you approve.